Okay, we're going to get started. Can you hear me, Brittany? Hello? I think I saw you on your video there. Okay, so you can hear me. Good. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining me again tonight. We are going to go over some really interesting stuff in regards to your assignment one or assessment one. I think you guys will like this part of the project for week one. Welcome to week one live session 2. As we get started here, just a few things on the agenda. If you have any questions, we can review them. I know there might be some people coming in here. It's a little later in the evening here. But if you do have questions and you're listening to this, I have some people emailing me as well. Go ahead and definitely shoot me those questions. We're going to do a little bit of a review as we go forward before we get into the assessment one. And then we'll get right into the demo. So before we get started here, Brittany, did you have any questions or concerns, anything you wanted to bring up from the last time we met?
Nope. I'm just here to make sure that I'm doing the assessment right.
All right.
And, that's the only thing I have left to do for your class for the week.
Very good. So you worked on your paper?
Yep, I did. Got that done and got turned in.
Great.
So.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't actually been able to check the grade book yet. But yeah, if you can turn that in early, that's awesome. So good for you. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Your initial discussion post needs to be posted by tonight before midnight for possible full credit. So don't forget about that. And then also, responding to your peer posts. So go ahead and do that. If you notice that nobody else is responding to a peer post, definitely, give it the extra effort to respond. And I will be on the discussion boards pretty soon here. I had a pretty full day. So, but I am here and ready to go. So let's talk about some review information here before we get into the actual demo for our assessment one. We talked about the employee identification number, the EIN number. You guys are discussing this within your discussion posts, bringing this up as well in your papers, hopefully for your assignment one. Just a little review here. It is a unique 9-digit number assigned by the Internal Revenue Service. So if you're wondering exactly what this is kind of what it is, IRS, to business entities operating in the United States for the purpose of identification. It's pretty much like a Social Security number, only assigned to your business. So it all comes down to pretty much paying your taxes, right? You got the man there. So a business needs an EIN in order to pay employees and to file business tax returns. To be considered a partnership like an LLC, a corporation, S corporation, nonprofit, etc., a business must obtain an EIN. Those businesses that do not are considered proprietorships, and the owner operator SSN is used on any tax documents. And we're going to be talking about a little bit about the differences between like LLC and corporation, what that all means here in a second. So also financial institutions such as banks, credit unions, and brokerage houses will not open an account for a corporation without an EIN. So that's kind of important. Since all corporations, including ones with no income, must file at least a federal income tax return, a corporation operating or incorporated in the United States generally must obtain an EIN anyway, either before or after being issued its charter. So some interesting details, and you guys are definitely being more aware of this as you dig into your research. So just a little review there to sum everything up that we discussed yesterday as well. Always nice to do, just kind of touch upon that. All right. And as we go forward here, it's also good to kind of do a little review because we talk about, when you guys go out into the real world and get your design experience, there are a couple, and this is, important to discuss because sometimes we get a little confused on what the terminology is and what different avenues that you can go as a designer. So, you probably have often heard of these terms, but we're going to break it down a little bit and kind of explain the differences between them. And I actually have the experience of doing all three of these, including working for a publication company. So it's kind of interesting to see the differences and explain these to you. And you probably already know some of these anyway. So we're going to talk about freelance, what that means to a design studio and an in-house designer. If you take any of these avenues, we're going to kind of discuss, what this means. So freelance, some people, when you say to somebody, I'm a freelancer, sometimes they think, oh, you're going to do work for free. Well, that's not necessarily the case. It just means that you're working on your own. You kind of have to be your own everything, and for the most part. So you are, the owner. You are the person designing. You're responsible for creating your own business and business decisions. So freelancing doesn't necessarily mean you're doing free work, but you're just a freelancer. So while freelancers may take on, Brittany, go ahead.
Freelancer is basically kind of like a sole proprietor in a way, because they
Yep. Mm-hmm.
pay employees, they do everything themselves.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep. So while freelancers may take on the same tasks as those working within a company, they also have to hustle for clients, be self-motivated, and wear many hats. So promoter, accountant, agent, art director, and more, in order to keep their business moving in the right direction. So, sometimes it's when I have students saying, I really just want to go out after I graduate and become a freelancer. Well, that's great. And, I'm not going to, tell you not to, but I often tell you, probably is a good idea if you get some experience under your belt before you do kind of work either in-house, for a company, so that you kind of get the ins and outs. And that's exactly kind of what I did. I worked for at least probably 8 years in different ad agencies and in-house places before I actually decided, okay, I can do some freelance, because I felt comfortable enough to kind of understand the ins and outs of the business, and because of that. So thinking about that, freelancers often don't stick to one sort of client or specialty, preferring to diversify their portfolios and have as many clients as they can. The possibilities for work are numerous, which can also bite a designer in that there are many, many hungry artists out there trying to scoop up said work as well. So, it's definitely very competitive, and, you kind of have to be, kind of a flexible person in order to be able to kind of work in the, in that regards. So it's definitely diversified. So how do you find work as a freelancer? Well, there's job boards that you can definitely take a look at. Social media is huge. You can definitely get in contact with people, or even put out promotional material, kind of promotional, self-promotional ads, or, word of mouth of what you do to kind of get that work. And just networking in general. There's so many different really interesting websites out there like Behance and LinkedIn that you can definitely network. And, not only mentioning to you guys, that's why, it's so important for you guys when you graduate from school, college, it's important to keep in touch with each other, with fellow alumni, because it's amazing how many doors can open if you keep in touch with the people that you go to school with, even instructors. You just never know. And I've had experiences like that throughout my many years of working, just kind of certain kind of avenues and doors opening up from people that I knew from, say my undergrad school or my graduate school, especially where I graduated at SCAD. I had a lot of great instructors and people that I went to school with online that I still kept in touch with. I still do today, that, bring up, hey, I got this job, or hey, and they'll even post it on social media, through either LinkedIn and say we have a job opening. So, thinking about that, there's, that's important to kind of the networking part of it. But these are the, some of the avenues that you can gain the work. Design is highly competitive. Think about that. Therefore, you must be great about self-promotion. So It's just like being a photographer. There's so many people out there, want to be photographers. It's hard to get into the business. So you really have to find your niche and be really great about self-promotion. Designers have to be their own marketing team often, unless they have an agent or hire someone to do their marketing for them, which sounds fantastic, but is also expensive. So many designers share their work through online portfolio sites like Behance, Dribbble, and DeviantArt. They also remain active in social networks like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So just keeping up to date with all of that, it's definitely, it evolves and changes as we go. I think, graphic design, the field in general is evolving so quickly with technology today. It's just crazy how much different it is now from when I started in school. But you kind of have to evolve as a designer too, and immerse yourself into these other, social media sites and other avenues that you can go. Freelancers are constantly growing and developing and hustling for work. Being self-employed means you have to be determined, self-motivated, and flexible in terms of working under deadlines and without the rigidity of the in-house 9 to 5 job. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's comparable to what you guys are doing on online school, but you really, when you're an online student, it really takes a lot of self-responsibility, because you're not actually driving to your school, getting into a classroom. You are taking it upon yourself to be self-guided throughout the week. So that takes a lot of personal responsibility. So if you're really good at time management because of that, and you're really, you exceed in the online environment, this is definitely going to help you if you decide to do like the freelance avenue, because that's kind of the same schedule and flexibility that you need in that type of line of work. Now, what's really nice too, and I always like to tell you guys, if you can get, I guess one of the best things that you can do, if you can, when you graduate, is get into a job that either in-house, an ad agency, somewhere where you're working for somebody, getting that experience, and then eventually maybe starting your own freelance on the side. So you're not quitting, you have that, job and it's solid, but then you have the chance to do for it. And it's also great to kind of keep you fresh in that regards too. Keep your work fresh, keep you learning, and growing, and then obviously evolving. So it's always a good opportunity to kind of keep that as a side thing, or start it so that you kind of can grow upon that too. Freelancers, they sacrifice stability for diversity. However, and many designers move fluidly between the freelance and in-house world as their careers progress. There is no wrong way to freelance, so long as you are respecting clients, fellow designers, yourself, and any contract signed. So it's definitely maybe not something that you can maybe possibly rely on solely. So that's kind of, if you're looking for steady income, it's probably not going to be that way all the time, just because there's ups and downs unless you have a ton of clients. So you kind of have to prepare yourself for that. And that's kind of why I said, if you want to do that freelance part, you might want to have, something that you're doing as full-time job first, and kind of dabbling into that as you go forward. And, you can kind of test it out and see what you think, if it's for you, and test the waters a little bit without going full into it. And then, obviously you don't want to go in and fail.
If you want to do the freelance thing, then you might want to work in like an advertising, business. That way, if it doesn't work out freelancing, you can always have a backup plan.
Exactly. Yep. So plan B. Yeah, I think sometimes students think, oh, it's so easy, we'll just graduate and we'll get a freelance job, I'll work at home. And it's not always like that. And you can, I'm not saying you can't, but it might not be as stable. You might not find the clients all the time right away. And then also you might run into a lot of issues if you're not familiar with how the process goes, especially in the business part of it. So it's always great to kind of gain that experience before going head into freelance with all of your, all of your might full time. So, okay, there's also in-house. And like I said, this is all, I've done in-house before. And basically, they work in two capacities. So within a design or marketing agency, this also goes for advertising agencies as well. So basically, any company that's sought for design, branding, or creative content in some manner, usually designers will work together on a team. It's pretty advantageous to be working not only with other creatives, but in an environment where the role of the company itself is to create creative content. So I've done, I have the experience of working for a lot of design agencies, ad agencies that are in-house. I also have worked for companies who hire only designers for their design department. So they're basically a company that is selling a product or a service, and they have their own in-house designers kind of marketing for just them. But I basically got the many years of experience at ad agencies right after graduating with my undergrad. And that really kind of molded me as a designer, I believe, because I was able to really get the experience of working with various clients and various projects instead of working for one company doing one type of, promotional material for one type of service or product. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying that if you work for an ad agency, you might have more of a very diverse portfolio and experience. But basically, you work together on a team, even if you're in-house working for one company or ad agency working for many clients, under a team. You basically do have a team, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you are, like, for instance, depending on the size of the actual company, they could have a smaller department where maybe you're the only designer and maybe you have somebody that you talk to as far as like a manager that's kind of above you that controls all of the nitty gritty stuff, kind of talking to the client, and you're basically the production end of it. So there's that as well. But the in-house, that's what that's involved with. So within a company's art department, for some, this role is also on a team. For others, they are alone or with one person, like I was just saying, creating whatever content, design, branding, etc. A company may need. The company itself doesn't focus on creative content. So this is talking about, like, let's just, for example, like Target, they probably have their own art department or their own graphic designers that do like just their promotional materials. So, this is another way of getting in somewhere where you're designing solely for that brand and that company. But you can also be on a team. An invaluable asset, the graphic designer that works within a company versus freelance will have steady, reliable work, either at an hourly rate or on salary. Alternatively, they may find a larger volume of work in a smaller time frame than could be expected for a freelancer who can define or negotiate their own work time frame. So there's pros and cons depending on kind of what you want, stability-wise, getting a paycheck, and then also work load-wise. I mean, it all kind of is relative to what kind of work that you're gaining as a freelancer. And how do you find work in that regard? So again, job boards, social media, networking. How to find an in-house job is basically just like, if you were a freelancer. So you can find job board jobs posted on job boards, social media as well, and networking, just like we talked about before. In-house work can be more rigid and boring, but is also more stable. So, and freelance can be like that too. Also, if you're working for an ad agency, or especially for one company that you're promoting just that one product or service for, it can kind of get redundant. But you're going to get paid, you're going to get a paycheck. So in that regards, it is definitely a pro. Any questions about any of that? It's kind of neat to kind of see the differences between all of those and kind of think about, what you would be more interested in, and just hearing kind of what I would suggest to do if you are thinking about doing freelance right out of the gate. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't start that right away. You can always find an in-house job and then start doing freelance on the side too after graduation. It's all kind of, relative to what your dreams are, what your goals are. So, obviously we don't want to, say don't do it, but we want to show you kind of the pros and cons between doing so. So kind of make a smart decision. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at your assessment one. Like I said, yesterday we went over your assignment one, which is your paper. So that was kind of the critical thinking part of our week here. Now we're going to go into more of the design part. So I'm going to open up Canvas here and take a look at our assessment one. We'll do a little review or read over, and then I'll start the demo. Okay, so this is basically covering the learning objectives here that we're going to touch upon. I'm going to read through this and then let me know if you have any questions. So a target market is the specific section of the population to which a business is aiming to sell its products or services. So for example, Bye Bye Baby targets new parents, Xbox targets gamers, etc. So it's important for every business to identify their target market. A business cannot appeal to everyone, so knowing their target market allows them to focus their marketing and brand on reaching those who are most likely to become good customers. In order to best do that, it is important that we first identify our personal style as designers. So target market, that's, basically the step that every designer should be looking into, whether or not it's promoting themselves or promoting for a different brand, or client per se. It's always good to kind of get into the details. So prompt in this assessment, create a mood board that conveys your personal style as a designer.
April, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
You said that when it comes to designing that you can't kind of like please everybody. What if you end up trying to design for like, if say that someone wants to like you're doing an example for a design company that does gamers or babies or something. What if it's like a multitude of things and not just one?
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm kind of getting what you're asking. So you're,
Instead of doing like one design, for your company, what if you end up like doing?
so you're talking about you as you're kind of promoting yourself as designing for like any type of avenue of medium. You're talking about media, like if you wanted to be, designed for promoting video websites, or you're talking about that?
Yeah, if you want to design for, like gaming or for, baby stuff. I mean, because from what I remember, I don't think freelancers do like one type of thing. I think they can do like a multitude of things depending
Right.
on
Mm-hmm.
who their target audience is. So
Right. Yeah. So what that's basically saying is you're not going to exclude anybody, but you're going to speak to the people that you might be able to gain work from. Okay. So that means you're just going to put out what your specialty is. So if you're a designer and you want to do various, if you can do various, your specialty is branding, website design, all of the different capacities, then you're going to have that in your promotional materials, and you're going to speak to them visually to say the places that you want to gain work from by placing in work that you have done visually, showing hey, I have experience doing this. This is one of my job examples, and this is what I do. So you're speaking to that audience. You're not excluding anybody. You're just speaking to the various avenues that you want to maybe gain some work from. So yeah, designers, we basically are open for the most part to designing for any type of client, any type of business, unless maybe you're more of a print designer versus a web designer. That's kind of where you might want to promote yourself more on the print side rather than web, or if you're both, you obviously show both. But I think what they're kind of talking about is making you think about this. You want to make sure you have a little bit of more of a niche in there, as far as like, if you are really good at branding, you want to make sure that you're speaking to those people that may need your, help with that. Okay. So you would tailor your look, your style, your work around that particular category of what you want to do with your freelance business, or as a designer, you know, wanting to look for an in-house job somewhere. Because think about it, when you look for jobs, say you're not going to be a freelancer, you're going to look for an in-house job. You're either going to look at a company that you're going to design for solely, so you know what their style is, what they want, you know, whether they're heavy into advertising design. So you're going to tailor your resume, your examples, work examples, to that specialty, right? So if you're a designer that's looking for maybe more of an ad agency job because they do so many different things, then of course your resume, your look, your examples that you're going to show are more of a diverse look rather than, you know, a very focused, you know, just doing advertisements. You're going to show web design experience if you have any. You're going to show branding. You're going to show, you know, illustration work if you have that ability. So you're going to tailor it to what you kind of want. Your goal is like, okay, you want an ad agency job. It's going to be different than an in-house company job, or a freelancer. If you want to be a freelancer, you had to tailor your look to being a freelancer to speak to that target audience. Does that make sense? Okay. So in this assessment, you're going to create a mood board that conveys your personal style as a designer. So really think about your own personal style as a designer. Each mood board needs to have 3 keywords, 3 color scheme of your choosing, a variety of images that you think are a good representation of who you are. You know, think of maybe not just on I wouldn't say think about this as a personal part of it. I would say it's the business side of it. Okay, so I wouldn't show you and like your family or your dog or whatever. I would show, you know, you don't even have to show your face or anything like that. Just a good representation of who you are. So maybe, you know, you're looking at images or illustrations of things that you really kind of speak to you. Obviously, you want to use stuff that if you're not using anybody else's work per se, but you're going to show like inspirational images that reflect the style that you like. The images can be design examples, inspiration, or whatever you feel is appropriate. Your personal logo can be needs to be in there as well. So this is kind of like the fun part, I think. Remember the elements of design when creating your mood board. Its layout and composition should reflect your skills as a designer. So that plays an even greater part of this, you know, how you present yourself. So not only are you choosing these elements, but how are you putting this together? How are you laying this out? Based upon your mood board, identify at least 3 types of businesses or individuals who would be a good target market for your business, okay? In Word, write 2 to 3 sentences for each on why they are a good fit for your style as a designer. Submit your Word document as a PDF of your mood board. And then what you're going to do is submit your final files as a PDF of your mood board and Word document with the following name. So what you need to do is kind of think about what you want, how you want to present yourself, what you want to do when you graduate. Do you want to be an in-house designer working for an ad agency? Then tailor your work and your look around something that would attract certain individuals, certain maybe ad agencies that would be looking for somebody who would be more of a diverse designer in that regards. If you're looking for more of a freelance part of it, you know, that could equally look like the same as, you know, if you were promoting yourself for an ad agency as well. It just will be, you know, more independent in regards to, you know, if you are promoting yourself, obviously you're going to put that you are a freelancer versus sending your resume to somebody and examples to an in-house place. It will probably look the same in regards to that though. You know, if you're maybe you're thinking of just solely being a web designer, you know, working digitally on stuff. So you're going to tailor that around, you know, web design or, you know, user experience, if that's kind of what you're, you know, that's kind of big now. All right, so I just kind of pulled a couple examples here of I just went on Pinterest. I think that's a great resource to go to. If you've never heard of it before, I'm sure you have. Pinterest, you can go in there and just do a keyword search for mood boards, graphic design mood boards. And I just found a few here. And there's no size requirement. You know, I'm not going to say it has to be this size. There's no grid or layout. You know, you can do whatever you want as long as it works for, you know, what you are portraying as your own promotional materials. Some of this is general. So this one, for instance, is a very general mood board, just showing more of like a interior design type of a look. So they're getting these pictures of house, you know, furniture and colors, color schemes and patterns in here. But just look at it in terms of the grid structure here. This is a nice grid structure. It's a you know, very organized grid structure, but also shows patterns and textures and color swatches and typography. Here's another one. So, you know, switch it up. You can show typography that you're into, maybe quotes, images, styles that you like. Obviously, your logo would be in here as well, but just kind of be inspired by the grid structure and how everything's kind of laid out, the textures that you see, and make it work for you. And you can definitely look up some design inspiration. You know, this is a great one. This is one that would be maybe a freelance designer promotional mood board, and this is probably their work. Or something that they're inspired by. So this is a great example of showing textures and typography, and not only there, he has his logo up there, oliversoden.com. And so this is another example. Here's another more of an interior one, just to show you different size ratios. You can do like a square as well, but you know, play around with it. And like I said, Pinterest is a great resource. And actually, I'm going to go in there right now just to show you real quick. I just go in there for all kinds of stuff, so you can get sucked into here really quick. Let me sign in here. I know you guys can't see what I'm doing, but give me one.
I actually had a question. When it comes to the logo, does it have to be your name, or can it be like a made-up business name for your business?
It can be either or. Good question. Yep.
Because I have trouble with that one. For my past design classes, I would ask them, and they would be like, well, it's got to be this, or it's got to be this. So that's why I wanted to ask before I had trouble.
Oh, yeah. I think it could be, I would say, either or. You know, if you're thinking of starting a company, you know, why not? If you want to present yourself not with your name as a freelancer, why not use a name that may not be associated with your actual personal name? Yeah, so you definitely can do that. I would definitely, you know, say that I would be totally fine with that. Okay, for some reason I cannot log into Pinterest right now. But anyway, so, you know, just you'll see those same design examples that I just kind of went over here. It's giving me a little problem because I can't remember my password. You know, all those passwords that you have to remember. So if you go on Pinterest or even a Google image search, I'm sure you've heard mood boards before. Make it who you are and what you want to present yourself as. You can do this in InDesign if you're comfortable. You can do this in Illustrator. I would probably recommend either program. Photoshop probably not so much, just because you don't really want to do a logo in Photoshop. So, and you know, you might be putting in type in there too. So I would steer clear of Photoshop. You can definitely use it to size down your images, or, you know, make image correction or manipulation if you need to. But I would ultimately get the actual layout in either Illustrator or InDesign. I would recommend probably more so InDesign, just because you can really be a little bit more detailed in your layout as far as the typography goes. If you want to develop your logo in Illustrator and then keep everything in Illustrator, that's fine too. I wouldn't be, you know, opposed to that, just as long as you're saving it out as the required PDF before submitting it. Okay, And you can keep it very simple. I'm going to go into, do you have any questions before I actually go forward here? I read through the details, and before I go forward into the demo.
When it comes to the whiteboard size, sometimes when it comes to the whiteboard size on things, especially with my past classes, they have said that it has to be like, you know, a certain size by a certain size. Does it matter what size the whiteboard is?
No, I say I probably would, that's up to you, but I wouldn't make it obviously really large. And really large would be, I wouldn't make it like 11 by 17. I would stick in, you know, within the ratio of the 8 by 10, but you can do like an 8 by 8. You can do 6 by 6. I wouldn't go extremely large just because if you were to send this to somebody, say online, you don't want the example to be super small where you can't see it. So I would keep it within the ratio. I would keep it no bigger than like 10 by 10.
Yeah, so basically you're saying you don't want it to be too small, but you also don't want it to be too large either.
Exactly. Yeah. But I would be very open to maybe a longer, you know, either vertically or horizontally longer, you know, kind of like a unique size where it's maybe like, you know, 10 by 5 or 10 by 6, you know, something unique like that. Or even a square size. So I don't want to say do an 8 by 10. I wouldn't actually do an 8.5 by 11 just because, or a 10, just because that's like a pretty typical standard ratio. Do something different, you know, make it unique. I mean, you can, I'm not going to say you can't. I won't obviously take points if you do like an 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11, but you know, kind of
Saying to make it so you're comfortable with showing who you are.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, be creative with it, but don't go super small. You know, I wouldn't go any less than 5 by 5, but I wouldn't go any more than like 10 by 10 either. So keep it within the ratio. That's easy to view online, and maybe even in print. Because, you know, think about a mood board. If you are presenting this to a client, if you want to show who you are, you want to make sure that the size ratio isn't kind of like hard to see, because then that would be kind of a bad thing, because then they'll think, well, why didn't they, you know, think about this presentation part of it? So, you know, you really have to think about that. All right, so going forward here, I'm going to stop sharing my canvas, and I'm just going to go into InDesign first, just because let me see, let's do 6 by 6 here. I'm just going to do a simple logo in InDesign here. But like I said, you could even go into Illustrator, create your logo, and then import it into your InDesign layout. That's fine too. And that's typically what designers do.
I'm just about to ask that.
Yep. That, be in really good habit with that. A lot of students get into the habit of just doing everything in one program, and that's fine. But when you're actually working for somebody, you're probably going to be bouncing around from one program to the next. And typically InDesign is the final layout program that you're going to go to. So get used to that. I would say, you know, get used to that whole going from, you know, creating your illustrations or logos in Illustrator, but importing them into your InDesign file for final layout. Okay, so I just went up to File, New in InDesign and created my document. And I decided to just do a 6 by 6 inch, just make sure you're in inches, document. And you'll see kind of how it translates into pixels. And that's a pretty good general size for that. So if you're thinking online, that's a good general size to promote your work as well. So if you were to post, say, this on Facebook or something like that, it's not going to be too big or too small. Okay, so basically what I would say is, you know, kind of go and research first, kind of know what you want to do and promote yourself, you know, who you're speaking to, know your audience that you're going to speak to. You might even want to write your paper out first, or your sentences out that you're required to do for the second part of this. You might want to do that first, and that will give you really great.
I actually had a question. when it comes to doing that, if you just want to kind of like express that you can do a multitude of different things instead of, you know, one thing, if you're like into multiple different designs instead of one certain design, can your mood board show that?
Yes. So you're talking about like different styles and different, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was
So
just
like,
thinking, like, okay, well, I don't want to stick to one design. I kind of, you know, like doing like a whole bunch of different ones. So,
yeah. So if you like to do, if you have experience and want to do advertising design and you want to do branding, so like creating logos, or if you want to do website design, you know, show all of those pieces in there if you have some inspirational images to show, or even if you have your own work that you want to show. Yeah, show those various inspirational images of those. And then whenever you're talking about this, so what I would do is do part 2 first. So I think that would actually work. That's kind of where I would start. I would identify at least 3 types of businesses or individuals who would be a good target market for your business. Know kind of how you're speaking, you know, who you are, what you want to do. Do you want to be a freelancer, in-house designer? You know, do you want to specify specific category? Do you want to be a solely web designer? You know, really get that down first before you start the mood board. And then when you're writing in your sentences on, you know, how you know, they, which is the business or individual, would be a good fit for you as a designer, the style as a designer, that's kind of when you can go in and start doing your pulling of inspirational images. So that's kind of where I would start. So I'm going to do this demo kind of looking at it as more of the freelancer or going for an in-house ad agency job. And so I would, because I like to do various stuff too. Like I like to do book cover designs. I love doing, you know, web design. I love doing branding is one of my big things that I really like to do, corporate branding. So I like to do various stuff too. So I kind of want to promote that in regards to my stuff. Now I have work pieces that I have done that I can include in here that I've already pulled. So let me show you that here. A second, let me stop sharing, and I'm going to share my whole desktop so you guys can see everything here. All right, so I just kind of pulled into my folder here my work, and I just pulled this from my portfolio. And let me show you my examples here. So some of these examples are definitely like signage, corporate identity, book cover design, branding, again, website design. So I just kind of pulled these pieces together. I actually have a lot of publication design work, but I didn't pull that. I don't have that included in there. I just pulled a few things that I knew I had from my Behance site. So now what I'll do is kind of determine, okay, how many images do I have? What's the structure that I want to do as far as a grid structure, and kind of go from there. So you can pull up if you're using InDesign, you can go up to View, and just make sure that your grids and guides, you have Snap to Guides checked, Smart Guides checked. That'll help you align your elements. You can show your grid here too, if you want a baseline grid, document grid. I kind of like to do it my own way in terms of pulling out margin guides. So I'm going to make sure that my rulers are being shown. So I'm going to go up to View and make sure rulers are shown, and you'll see that above and, you know, horizontally and vertically next to your layout, you'll see this ruler. And you can click into the ruler and pull down horizontal lines, margin guides, or vertical to kind of set this up. These won't print. These are just for you to align your images or your type. So you can kind of move them around. You can lock them if you want to. If you go up to View again and you go to Grids and Guides, you can actually lock your guides. Say if you're having problems like moving stuff and then this is kind of moving with it, you can lock them. You can delete them by just selecting them with your Move tool and hitting delete on your keyboard. But these are basically for you to align. This purple line here is my margin guide, and I can change those by actually going up to Layout, Margins, and Columns. And right now mine's set at 0.5. And you can change these based kind of what you want as far as your margin guide. So I'm going to put 0.25. And if you have this little link checked, it's going to set all of your margins to that same number. Okay. So, you know, basically you can kind of mold and shape this as you go. You don't really have to know it completely. You know, you'll probably, you know, shift things around, like I said, as you go forward, but kind of get an idea and a good sense of how you're going to start this. So I'm just going to pull these down and kind of see what I have as I go forward. Some of my examples, I might have to change this up. So I'm going to go. I'm just going to go with this for now. So maybe my logo may go here, and maybe I have my swatches go down here, and I'll kind of piece this out as well. Okay, and like I said, this is, you know, ever changing and flowing, so you definitely can play around with this. Then I'm going to take the rectangle frame tool, which is kind of how you would place images into, I don't know, are you, let me see if you're actually seeing what I'm seeing here. Hopefully you can see. Okay, I'm just sharing my whole desktop so you can see. All right, so I'm going to go to my rectangle frame tool. And I'm just going to actually, before I even place them in here, I'm just going to draw out my square here, do Command D, which is a file place. That's the shortcut key. And then I'm going to go to my work and just start pasting in my examples here. Now I pulled mine from offline. So these aren't my high res, you know, images, but I just quickly did it. I would say start out with more of the high res, unless you know, obviously you're just showing it on the web, but you want to make sure that they look crisp and clear too. So just make sure you're doing that.
When it comes to writing the document part, does it have to be APA format?
I would say no. This is more kind of like just you kind of stating your intentions for what your mood board's about. So I would not say, you're not going to be citing sources or anything like that. Good question though. Now I'm just placing these in here just to see what I have, how many pictures I have. You might already have an idea of this, so you might not even need to do this. Now I'm placing solely my work in here. It doesn't have to be your work. If you're like, you know what, I don't have anything to show in here, that's fine. I'll show you kind of what you can do in a second. This is just because I do have work. If you have freelance work, say stuff that doesn't require, that you have not used for school that you think is a good representation of what you want to show here, that's fine too. I would definitely, utilize that. All right, so this is my...
I actually have stuff that I've done from like my past classes, but I cannot access them because the computer that I have does not have they do not have USB ports.
Oh.
Yeah, it has like one of those like Type C, USB ports, so I won't be able to actually use any of my past works in this unless I can.
Wouldn't you be able to just send it to like online, like a Google Drive or something, so you can get it onto another computer?
Oh, wait a second. I just realized that I ended up posting most of that on my Behance and stuff like that. I completely forgot about that.
There you go.
Sure. Okay.
Usually there's always like another way to do things, like to that you've placed images or work from. So yeah, just think about ways that you can access that. All right, so you can kind of see that I'm just kind of seeing the orientation of all my pictures and trying to work with this with my grid. So, it's just something that you might just kind of have to change and work with as you go forward here. This is what I'm doing is I'm just doing the size ratio of my bounding box to my actual grid structure, and then I'm going up to object, fitting, fill frame proportionately to fill. And if you have to, kind of shift it, double click in the actual text frame, it'll turn red, and that'll kind of show you the image size that it is without being cut off with your bounding box. All right, so I'm going to kind of leave I don't know if I'm going to show all of these because I want to add some other things here, but let's see. Let's pull this down. Some of these can be smaller. Put this in here. So I'm kind of getting this grid structure going. If I want to have those white lines or black lines, I'm going to just draw these solid lines in here. So I just use the line tool. I held down the shift key so that it's perfectly straight. It's locking in a straight manner. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of add a stroke to it. And the stroke I'll probably give, let me pull up stroke here. Stroke. I'm going to give it a width of, let's see, 1 point. Let's see. Maybe. And I have to have it selected here. Hold on. There we go. So 4 points kind of gives me that nice, thicker line edge there. I'm going to zoom in so I can grab this. And you can't really see it now, but you'll be able to see it. If I do an Alt drag, it gives me a copy of that, and I can kind of center that over the top of this grid area, grid line, this margin guide. Same thing here. I'm just going to do a shift, draw out this line. And you don't have to do this. You can leave it as is if you want to do that. And please don't copy exactly what I'm doing either. You know, to make it, you know, for you. This is your customed promotional.
Saying make it your style, don't copy yours.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty general, like you saw the mood boards that I just showed you for presenting work. But as far as like, yeah, like the style of it, if you want to do something different, completely different, that's fine. This is the fun part of it, just kind of making it your own. All right, now I have to get rid of that. All right, but I just wanted to show you very quickly here what this looks like before we go forward. So I kind of put those white lines in there. And now what I can do is add texture. So what I think I'm going to do is go back to, let's go to pixabay.com. Pixabay.com, if you don't know what the site is, you can get high-res images on here for free, copyright-free images. And what you can do is kind of look up maybe things that you think attract you visually as a designer. So, you know, maybe maybe you like, let me try to think here. If you're more into the web design, you can do keywords based upon that and come up with just imagery that kind of represents that is, you know, like for instance, maybe this image. In regards to that, you really like that, you can actually download it for free. I'm just going to do a low. So maybe like a texture that relates to your image and how you want to portray yourself. So I'm just going to put that on my desktop here. So it doesn't have to be like a specific design, but maybe, you know, it's some really cool imagery that you are drawn to that, you know, inspires you, that you want to kind of add in there as texture. This is all web design stuff. You know, even coding, that's kind of interesting. There's some really cool like symmetrical details here that you can definitely use as a nice texture to yours. So you can show examples and have textures too that relate to how you want to be, you know, how you want to communicate visually. So I'm going to go back to my page here and I'll show you kind of what that does. And what's nice about this is actually giving you a color scheme too. So it kind of gives you a nice just more of an aesthetic part because I have a lot of design examples. So this is really kind of a nice balance of aesthetic part. It's not all just work, work, work. You have a nice balance of textures. And you could do solid colors too. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, if you kind of, oops, you can even take your eyedropper tool if you want to sample any colors that you are, you know, that's in your work. Say maybe this blue, you can definitely, you know, utilize that. Oops, sorry. So you don't necessarily have to just, oh, okay, I'm going to pick a color, but let's see here. I'm going to fill this in here, and oops, and you can kind of get your color theme in there too. Let's see. Okay, this has a stroke on it. I have to get rid of here. There we go. It's kind of funky that way. Does this have a stroke on it? No. Okay. Some of these I might have to pull up here. Hold on one second. All right. This. Some of my lines are kind of going in the background, so I just have to pull them forward. So object, arrange, bring to front. That's what's going on here. And I'm not using layers, which you can definitely utilize here too, and you can have all of your lines on the top layer, so this doesn't actually happen to you. So just kind of wanted to do something really quick here. There we go. Now all my lines are pretty much even. I think this is the only, there we go. Okay, you can even use typography. Let me go back here and just type in typography. You know, maybe there's a particular font family that you really like. Here's wood block lettering. Like say if you really like that style and that's part of, you know, what you want to show, you definitely can utilize just you showing a specific typeface. So let's see here. There's all kinds of interesting typefaces. Let me just pick one. Actually, I kind of like this because it's kind of like very interesting way of showing type. You're kind of showing the typeface and how the kind of the study of it. All right, go back here. You know, I can put that in one of these blocks. Typography. You could be even a quote. You can even put quotes in here, you know, anything that kind of really inspires you. Just make sure it's appropriate for, you know, what we're doing here. You can look up textures. So textures that you're inspired by that would reflect kind of who you are as a designer. You know, a lot of this stuff is kind of, you know, here's a really cool one here. It's really kind of based on who you are too. So it's somewhat subjective. Although as designers, you know, we are designing for a client, so you're gonna have to keep that in mind too. But this is kind of expressing you as a designer. That's kind of like the tricky part of it. But you definitely you know, utilize a texture that you like. Let's type in design here, see what comes up. Design thinking. You know, that's another thing. You know, if you're really good at the process of, you know, if you're really into design processing and stuff like that through your branding, you can implement that in there, design process. Maybe sketches, thumbnails, stuff like that. Brainstorming, I'll put thumbnails. See if they have a keyword in there. Probably not. Let's do sketches. If you're really good at illustration, you kind of want to go that route, you know, you want to show that. Here's one that I could definitely easily implement into mine because I do a lot of wireframing for web design. So that could be a good, you know, and it's not necessarily my work, but it's not specific to anyone either. And obviously it's from a place that, you know, I can use it because it's free, it's copyright free. So it's general enough that you're seeing kind of what that's about and it's how it's relating to who you are as a designer, you know. The whole design thinking part of it is kind of what I'm tapping into. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that one with that just because I have two that are similar. So I'm going to put this in there. It shows the design process. You can even, you know, I could break this down into just totally different colors that I want to, you know, kind of show in here too. Just like a color scheme. Now, this is a little tough because obviously, you know, you're not going to be using the same colors within your work, but maybe colors that you that pull you in more so as a designer, you know, colors that you stand by a lot. Let's go to my alignment. Align panel. There we go. Probably want to make sure these are all the same thickness here, and that's something that, you know, I definitely want to go through. I could probably adjust these as well, size-wise, just a little bit. Oops. I'm just going to leave it as is. Let's see if I can adjust this from here real quick. There we go. Alt drag. So have fun with it, you know, it's a little bit too much too. Have fun with it. There we go. Let me try to align these now. But also keep in mind that, you know, you have an audience that you're speaking to, that you want to make sure that your stuff is relevant to what you know, kind of what you're doing. All right, so now maybe what I'll do is obviously just pull from other designs here. I can even just go with that total theme there with the brown and the other colors. Let's do like a lighter pink for that. Or actually, let's do maybe a darker brown. There we go. Probably better. All right. And then, you know, obviously your logo will be placed in there. You could do like kind of like the design examples I showed you. You might do like a circle, kind of having your logo shown in that regards. So you could do like a cool little intercept, kind of breaking up the grid a little bit with your logo in here. And then I can place whatever image up here. I think I had one additional image that I deleted. All right, so you can do something like that, or, you know, obviously you don't want to go over certain parts of your work. So, you know, obviously pick your position wisely if you do something like that. Or you can even just put your logo in one of the squares that's provided to you, like up here. I don't necessarily have an updated logo of mine, so I'm going to keep it very simple. And I'm just going to use my name, but you don't have to use your name. You can use, like we discussed before, Brittany had asked about using just a name that's not associated with your actual personal name. That's fine too. Just make sure it's appropriate to what you're, what you want your design.
I actually had a concern. From what I'm seeing is that the white circle that you did, is that where you're putting your logo at?
Yeah, I'm going to show you kind of two ways that I could do this.
Because I'm trying to figure out, I was like, okay, well, if we can do it different shapes, then I was thinking I could put my logo in a shape like that, but then I was thinking, how exactly am I going to get it to fit into it?
Well, obviously you want to utilize the space based upon the shape of your logo. You're not going to want to just fit it in a mold. So if your logo has a shape to it already, you want to make sure it's appropriate for the shape that, or area that you're going to place it into. So design your logo and then decide kind of how you want to have it placed in here. Don't design it based on, because I'm doing a circle, oh, I need to change it because the shape's not working for the circle. You want to make sure the logo is the logo that you want, and then when you place it in there, it's going to work for the space that it's in. So basically you're designing your space around your logo. It's not vice versa. Because that wouldn't make sense, right? All right, so I'm just doing something really quick here. Let's kind of get this. Let's see, where are we at? There we go. So say if this was my logo, very simple, and then I'm going to change maybe the, let's see here, let's see, color. Give it like an 8, let's give it an 85% black. And so I have this logo, it's kind of square, it's symmetrical, so it's easy to place anywhere really, it's not long. So if it's long, it's not going to fit in the circle, then don't use this circle or use a shape like that, obviously. But if it works for the space that you're putting it in, then definitely go for it.
Do we have like a background color for it too? Or would that be a little too much?
What do you mean, for your logo?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to make sure whatever background that you have it in, it's going to be readable.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like when you design a logo, you want to make sure that you're testing it anyway on different backgrounds. You want to make sure it works on a white background. You want to make sure it works on a black background. You know what I mean? Like darker backgrounds.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to be sure.
Yep. And you'll kind of feel it out and where the space that hopefully, that you're looking at. I just did this very quickly just to show you, but this would be an example. If you have a longer vertical or horizontal logo name, or the shape of your logo is kind of weird, it might not work in this type of application. So you might need to instead utilize, a different space. Just experiment with it, see kind of what works. You were talking about color. I could just throw like a quick black color here. Make it black. I'm going to make sure it's a rich black. Yep, looks good. So I'm just going to switch this to white. And I'm going to center this. So test it out. I'm going to have to change this around too. see what works, what's, you know, what you believe is good for your look, the overall feel, colors, you know. It doesn't have to be a specific set of colors, just something that inspires you. I'd say the only thing, and looking at this, I probably would switch this one out just because, I don't know, it just kind of bothers me. It's a rainbow color and everything else is kind of, you know, more of a solid color. But I just wanted to show you quickly kind of the textures that you can use. So I probably would change a few things around here just to kind of make it look more aesthetically unified, if that makes sense. So think about it in that regards too. You know, you want to unify this. You don't want it to look too disconnected in the style of it too. So let me see if I can find a better picture here. Maybe even just this, because, you know, I really like the process of design work. So in showing this, you know, I'm showing that I'm doing the research, thumbnails, you know, pen on paper, pencil on paper, going through the design process. Methodology is a big thing that I do when I do my branding pieces. So, you know, maybe just showing that in here might be a little bit better for me. And color wise, it's probably going to work better. See how that kind of unifies a little bit better. Yeah, kind of all kind of unifies. So yeah, I mean, kind of swap out images, see what works. You know, you're going to be able to tell if you like it or not, because it's it's who is, you know, you're representing yourself. So if you don't like it, obviously, you know, change things up. But, you know, grid structure is important here. You can do a photo montage too. You don't have to do this rigid, I want to say Mondrian look here. There's different types of mood boards. If you want to research different types of mood boards, like I said on Pinterest, you know, see what styles are out there, what you go draw, or, you know, kind of draws you to that. You're inspired by that. You can definitely do that too. There's mood boards, and I wish I could log into my account. If you go into Pinterest and just type in mood boards, there's some that have really cool designs, like they're triangles. They're putting all of their work in. So you don't necessarily have to do a square. You know, you can use your, and let me show you real quick, in InDesign, you can use your pen tool and draw out these shapes to place in your work. That's kind of off here. Hold on. So you don't have to go by with just the general shapes that you are used to. Let me go back here. Sorry, guys. And then select that shape, Command D, which is File Place. And then you can place in, find your example in there. So object fitting, fill frame proportionally. So you can do that. You know, you don't have to go with the typical square. You know, you can start really doing some really cool stuff with your designs. Let me do another page here and show you here real quick. I just turned off facing pages because I didn't want that.
I actually had an idea that what I could do is like I could put my logo kind of like in the middle, and then kind of like have them being like a square, and then kind of like a rectangle type of thing, you know, kind of like layers going around that. Would that work?
I mean, this is going to be up to you. So you're going to have to test this out. I'm not going to say whether it would work or not. It would just have to be based upon the principles of design and how that's aligning and how everything's kind of working together. So experiment. It could work, but it's, you know, based upon a lot of factors. You know, do you have good alignment? Do you have you know, the basic principles of design. Is that working for you when you're doing that? You know what I mean? Experiment and have fun with it. Do exactly what you said. See if it works. See if you think it's successful in the alignment that you have. It's, you know, the presentation of it, you know, is it working? And you'll kind of experiment with it and see what works whenever you're actually doing it. Think about hierarchy. Think about alignment. You know, all of those things kind of come into play. So of course you want your name to stand out. You want it to be prominent. So that's kind of why it works here, because I have such high contrast here. And when I had it set into the circle instead of the square, it worked there because it was the only shape that was different. So the focal point went right there. So, and I was also utilizing the rule of thirds there. So that the hierarchy was working there. So just making sure you could do whatever you want, just making sure that the layout is working in regards to the design principles. So I'm just kind of playing around here. I just saw this really cool design and it inspired me. So I was kind of like trying to think of how I can show you guys. Just, you know, in different shapes that you can experiment with. I just wanted to show you don't have to go with the standard square. You can kind of do something really cool and funky. Oops. I'm going to duplicate these and then Alt drag it up. And you can flip these, you know, kind of have fun with it. This is the fun part of it. Oops. It's all about experimenting. And as designers, as design students, you guys should be experimenting like crazy, because this is where you do it. You know, this is where you shouldn't have as much fear as, you know, this is why you're here. You're experimenting, and nothing is right and wrong, you know, in terms of your layout structure, unless, you know, your principles aren't quite, you know, your alignment isn't working or something like that. But you should be kind of playing around with, and my alignment is definitely off here, playing around with things, you know, experimenting. This is where
yeah, I already have a couple of design options that I'm thinking about already.
Good. Yeah, do like 3 concepts. Don't do just one. That's how designers work. You know, usually you do a couple before you really decide on the way to go, and play around with it. So I'm just kind of playing around with these elements, but you can definitely, you know, I could put my logo in the middle and then change out each of these as different design concepts. With this example, I just wanted to show you just different shapes that you can utilize too. These are really small, so I probably would get these a little bit bigger. But it's kind of cool. You can play around with it. It could be circles. They don't have to be triangles. You can throw in a background that's really, really contrasted. You know, maybe like a black background or something that's really going to make everything pop. This is the experimental stage here. I think I have this right. And it's okay if you experiment in here. You don't necessarily have to do sketches all the time. You know, sometimes it's definitely part of the process too. So don't feel like, you know, oh, I got to sit here and do sketches all the time. I think I would focus on kind of more so like how you want to represent yourself too. Okay, so I'm just kind of placing in.
In the past, so when it comes to designing something, you always want to make sure you have a couple of designs because most of the time you end up with something completely different than what you actually started with.
Yeah, well, especially when you work with clients that are like, I want to mishmash all these ideas together. You know, yeah. So you want to make sure you have a concept in mind. And some of my pieces, obviously, this is kind of where these shapes aren't quite working for me because the pieces are hard to see. But I did want to just show you, how you can play around with shape. It doesn't necessarily have to be, oops, squares. It can be circles. It could be triangles. It could be, you could have some really cool, like asymmetrical, which means not balanced, right? Where you're having like lines across the page and typography. You can actually put in your own typography on this page. Like, let's see here. You can find design quotes, that maybe you're inspired by, that you think about when you're designing, that you want to add in there. Anything that you're inspired by as a designer is great to have in here. So I'm just kind of showing you guys just a couple of things you should play around with. Different shapes. So not only are you finding pieces to put in here, but you're also finding a grid structure that works for it, that, is going to also present present your work very well too, professionally. I'll probably put like a couple more examples in here just to kind of get it even, but you can kind of get the idea. All right, so any questions? I know I kind of been showing you what I would do in this regards, but
when it comes to the document part, you said it's about what, 2 to 3 sentences per piece that we put down?
Yep, per like 2 or 3 sentences based on, what did it say, who your target audience is, so the business or individual. Let me go back to that in a second here. I'll show you. All right, so yeah, that has to pertain to who you're trying to attract. Oops. I kind of have to work on that a little bit, but let me go back to the assignment details. Based upon the mood board, identify at least 3 types of businesses or individuals who would be a good target market for your business. So for instance, you could say a specific ad agency or just an ad agency in general. Okay, so it could be a type, doesn't have to be a specific business. So you could say this is, my mood board is speaking to more so in-house design companies, businesses, and then in that description, 2 to 3 sentences for each on why they are a good fit for your style as a designer. So then you can say, I'm focusing more on in-house businesses, in-house companies, because I feel like my style is very diverse, and I can, the style, and I'm focusing on typography, not only typography, but I'm focusing on branding and website design of various showing various pieces of my work, focusing on the design process, which is huge when it comes to the creative process and thinking of you know, when you're actually developing a brand identity, for example, and that would be very beneficial for an in-house position. If your focus is more of web design part of it, then obviously you're going to say, I want to, you know, my mood board's based on a web design business I'm speaking to, and I feel like, you know, my style is a good fit because, you know, obviously my mood board is speaking in this way to this particular business or company because, and then kind of talk about the details, what's in there, what's in your mood board that's speaking to that target audience. Talk about the overall style, excuse me, the aesthetics that you're putting in there, the textures, the, you know, color schemes. You can even talk about how you presented it. You can talk about your logo, typography that you placed in there. So speak of your design elements as well. Does that make sense?
Yep, I have an idea of what I can do, so this should be no problem.
All right. So let me go in here real quick here. So you guys are going to save this out as, and I just accidentally went backwards here, sorry, a PDF. And then a Word document with the following names. So you'll also do a PDF from your Word document. And you'll basically upload your 2 PDFs. You can zip them if you want. You don't have to. It's up to you. And most of you guys should know how to save a PDF. I'm going to show you real quick. And you can do smallest size. Go ahead.
Does it have to be PDF, so we can do the PDF and then the Word document, or do they both have to be PDFs?
It looks like you have to do the paper in Word, but then save it out as a PDF for submission.
Okay.
That's how it looks like in there. I'm not quite sure why, but that's how they have it in there. So it's good to kind of know that because it might not, the submission might not accept doc files like Word files. So just kind of be aware of that. And actually it says submitting a file upload, so it probably will accept Word files. But, you know, reading the details is important. It looks like they want a PDF for submission. Here is the PDF. Open up your PDF, make sure, and I have 2 designs in here, but make sure you're you know, obviously you're opening the PDF before submitting it, making sure it looks good before submitting it. Same with your Word file too. Okay. Any questions? Can we're going back and forth here.
Nope, not anymore.
All right. I think this is oh, that's the last slide. Yeah, I thought it was going to be the last slide. All right. Well, this is kind of where I'm going to kind of wrap it up. If you want to show anything or have any other questions, this is a good time to do it. Other than that, we'll just wrap it up and call it a lecture.
Well, actually seeing what you did, it kind of inspired me to play with the shapes a little bit.
Good. So you'll experiment a little bit more and see what you can come up with. That's good. All right. All right. Well, Brittany, thanks for hanging in here tonight. And for all of you listening, if you have any questions, let me know. You know, I'm going to be around on the boards tomorrow, so let me know. And if you're up north, I don't know if we're going to get snow or not, but they're calling for 1 to 3 inches here in Pittsburgh tomorrow. Please stay safe if you're in those areas. I'm not sure if I'm ready for the snow yet, but it's coming. It is definitely coming. All right, guys. You have a wonderful evening, Brittany, and everybody else listening. I will be, like I said, be in touch with me if you have any questions. Have a great night.